Good evening, campers, streamers, and babysitters, and welcome to our raw reaction review for Weapons. When all but one child from the same class mysteriously vanish on the same night at exactly the same time, a community is left questioning who or what is behind their disappearance. I think I can go in and confidently say for a lot of people, maybe not most people, but certainly over the last couple of days, I've seen a lot of people claiming Weapons was their most anticipated horror film, if not film of the year so far. I, for one, would say I would be in that camp. There's been a lot of movies I've been excited for this year, but Weapons, certainly one of them. Luke, how are you feeling?
I'm right there with you. Not my most anticipated. There's just been so much that's already come out this year. Bring Her Back was a big one for me. Black Phone 2 still to come out. Weapons is certainly up there just because of how much we do love Barbarian, that being our favorite of the year that year. So the follow-up for Zach Krieger here, I mean, certainly was something that was intriguing. It's always that idea of, is it just a one-off? Is the director, did they just capture that lightning in a bottle that one time and can't really do a follow-up? We have so many of those cases. So Weapons was kind of going to be the proving ground. I know when they had the bidding war about this script, and we both got excited about it. We talked about it in the Sunday Scaries when that was going on. And this one, we're finally here. And I will say I was really hyped going into the theater.
I know you had texted me before this that you were like, I'm really looking forward to this one when we saw that they were showing the film at 2:17, which is a very important time code in the film, obviously, if you've seen the trailer. And I thought that was super fun, super cool of them to just like kind of get on board with that because like, is it really adding anything to the film? No, but it's a nice story, a nice little touch. And, I think that's kind of been the thing we've seen a lot recently when it comes to the marketing team behind movies like this, where they don't want to give very much away. They want to build enough intrigue, really lean into the ARG stuff, and really kind of build that up. And, we're seeing a lot more movies do it. And unfortunately, some movies, and I won't name names, Long Legs, 28 years later, they don't live up for some people. They've worked for us so far. And I'm walking in here, first impressions out of Weapons. I'm going to say that this is going to be another one that I clearly am going to see a lot of divide on.
I think so as well. I was a little more optimistic coming out of 28 years later about, I think people were going to be accepting of it and then seeing kind of, I don't know, I guess you'd say backlash coming out of that and more people seeing it, especially when it had dropped on VOD. And still, that divide still exists for that film. So going into Weapons, it looked like it was, Barbarian is also a particular kind of film for people. And I can see Weapons being right up there in that same conversation of you're either in or you're out due to some decision making and maybe not an over explanation of certain things. And really just kind of being along for the ride. Weapons really does feel like a true blue horror film where they really doubled down on certain aspects of it. It, for me, was kind of reminiscent of the 80s. And I think that's what Zach Krieger tries to encapsulate is seeing, saying we're horror, we're here, and this is what I'm going to give you. It's like we're not really trying to please a bunch of different audiences. It's one of those, I'm doubling down on this idea. I hope you're here along for the ride, and we're going to see what we're going to get. And I think that's what Weapons is going to be for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I loved Barbarian. I won't ride this soapbox for very long, trust me. I walked into that movie feeling like, I don't care. This looks generic. It looks goofy. The trailer did not sell me. The movie was a million times more than I could have expected. I did not see that twist, and I know a lot of people didn't. And that's why that movie got word of mouth and why it got so big and why I think people have been so eager, like you said in the intro, to see what Zach Krieger's follow-up is going to be. And although I say this movie is going to be divisive and there's going to be a lot of people who probably don't like it, I am not one of those people. I really enjoyed this movie. And I think the best thing that Zach Krieger did, which I was very worried about and why I needed to bring Barbarian up just a second ago, I was worried he was going to become the twist guy. Just like M. Night Shyamalan, nobody saw that coming. It was a complete smash where everybody's like, oh, go see Barbarian, go see it because of that twist. Some people hated it, admittedly. Some people were not on board with it. But I was worried that, okay, if he does that again, if there's a big twist. Now, I'm not saying there aren't twists in this movie. There certainly are. But it's refreshing to see him not lean too hard on the gimme button. You know what I mean? Like where it's just like I can even say we do that on our channel here with our lists. You know what I mean? Where it's like, there's certainly certain topics that we've made sequels to where it's like that performed well. So I'm going to do that. I was worried that maybe Zach Krager was going to do that where it's just like, I got to do a crazy twist that even if it doesn't make sense, the twist is everything when it's not. And he has the confidence to come into this movie and say, I'm going to tell you a story, and be it, I don't see this as a spoiler, I'm going to tell it several times. And I thought that was very ballsy, and it worked for me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was really happy with the way this film turned out. And I think in a very different way than when I look at Barbarian, because you talk about that kind of twist, and Barbarian does kind of have that pretty harsh twist of, oh my gosh, what did we just see here? And I think Weapons has more of that kind of natural feel, that natural progression of the story. We're not really looking at an oh my gosh moment. Yes, like you said, there are twists and turns in a film, but it feels natural, like how you would see in most narratives of a film. So he's not really hanging his hat on presenting this big twist. It is more so this cohesive story and seeing how we get there. One of the big elements here that I really enjoyed is the narrative itself and the way we do storytell with a bunch of different characters, and each one kind of getting their own spotlight so that we can kind of get behind them or at least resonate with their characters and feel like, okay, I have some skin in the game with this character when we see how everything presents itself. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, especially when a name pops up on screen, you know who you're going to be with for a few I don't know, 10-15 minutes depending on how that story goes. But I really like that trajectory of our characters. Each story presents something different for these characters in terms of what they're going through, how they get to certain events, and what they have to deal with. Everything feels organic, everything feels unique. This was something I began looking forward to as we got deeper into the story of, okay, what are we going to see next?
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. I thought that the format was interesting. It was unexpected because I stayed away from a lot of marketing after that first teaser. I think that's key to enjoying this movie is not knowing too much when you get into it because, like I said, there's twists in this movie. But this is very much like Luke said at the start, a very true blue horror movie. It's going to not necessarily, I think, shock you to your core like Barbarian does. It's going to slowly lay out cards and start pointing fingers in certain directions. And then before you know it, you're going to understand what's going on. You're going to understand what's happening if you're paying attention. And that's where the satisfaction comes from. Luke, you compare this to 80s movies. I compare this to mid to late 70s movies. This feels like a 70s thriller where it just like a Don't Look Now in a lot of ways, where it's a very serious, grounded story. And then it just starts taking sharp turns into horror, and we start kind of building up. Now, it's not nearly as slow as like Don't Look Now, but that's the kind of style that I think we're going for here, where it was very much a thriller that has elements of horror before it becomes a full-blown horror picture by the time we get to the third act. And I think those are some of the best kind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to clarify, when I say 80s, I think more so I mean that in the 80s, they had a concept and they said, this is the concept we're presenting. It is a horror film. You have to be deep rooted in the horror genre. You have to really love the horror genre to really get on board with things. And I think that's what Weapons is going to be, because we're dealing with, I guess, as we get further into the story, a certain kind of subgenre that I think, you're either going to enjoy or you're not going to enjoy, because it is kind of deeply ingrained into horror. And for me, it absolutely worked. And I think as you talk about the 70s, I think, Weapons does have that kind of, I think 70s filmmaking horror certainly has this kind of gravitas to it. And I think Weapons, Zach Krager certainly brings that to Weapons here, where it's this kind of meeting of well done storytelling with well done character work, but then we're injecting a real horror theme into here. And like you said, by that third act, you kind of really know what you're dealing with and where we're going with the story. It's not something that's going to hit you upside the head and say, oh my gosh, I didn't expect this. I think we're really building that natural progression, that tension as we get to that third act. And what we're going to be dealing with and how everything's going to unfold. And even then, I found that rather exciting because we get into certain ordeals that I was like, oh, that was a kind of creative way to bring all these points together. And I really like that because the tension that we do get in here, if you would have sat me down and said, how is this film going to conclude? I don't think I would have called that at all in
No,
terms of
certainly not.
the certain things that they bring to it, certain imagery that you get to see in here. I was like, wow, this Zach Krager is a crafty son of a bitch.
Yeah, there's some fun ideas. And I mean, I think the thing that you gotta tip your hat to, and I think that before I get into like cast and stuff and then into ratings, I gotta say, like, Zach Krager is starting to at least build a repertoire of, he is going to really lay out a nice foundation for everything. He's going to give you characters that are fun and interesting. He's going to let you spend what feels like almost a little bit too much time with them, only to hit the gas. Now, it's not as quick as Barbarian, where he's just flooring it and we're going all the way. This one, I feel like he's revving up the engine a lot. And then there will be moments where you feel like everything's about to explode, and then he brings us back down. It's very much just playing with you back and forth. And I think, like, as long as you're willing to accept the structure and accept the format, which we won't spoil, but it's one of those things where it's like you're going to quickly understand what they're doing. As long as you accept that and take that ride, I think that it's done very, very well. Admittedly, once you kind of get into the third act and you do something again, I think that it's one of those moments where, okay, I feel like, and you kind of hinted towards this as we walked into the theater. I think you probably said it best, where it's like, without giving spoilers, it's kind of like where we could have sped things up a little bit more. Like I think by that point we could have maybe benefited from getting maybe some of that information just a tad bit earlier.
Yeah, I think that was my only critique. And it's walking out of the theater and still a few hours later doing this review was really my only critique, is that it slows down just slightly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in terms of that storytelling or some of those details, maybe you could have found a bit of a creative way to blend that in earlier on in the film so that we're not overly anticipating the conclusion of the film. And I think maybe I felt a little bit of that, where kind of the pacing slowed down a little bit, and it was a necessary evil for the way that we're telling the story, unfortunately. But it's like maybe you could have just injected that a little bit earlier to really speed up the remainder of the film, because this is pushing, I think, over 2 hours, if I think so, isn't it? Or
It's
just
too
over.
so not to completely like derail here, but I actually batted an eye at this as I was reading the description. It is apparently 2 hours 8 minutes. It does feel a bit longer than that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I thought it did, to be
But
honest.
not in a bad way, like
No,
a
no.
hearty meal way.
Exactly, where it was like I never once was like, "Oh my gosh, can I wait for this film to be over with?" It's so versatile in its storytelling that it takes you on so many different rides, but it does feel a lot longer than that runtime that says that it's only 2 hours and 8 minutes. I think it felt like we were getting a lot thrown at us, not in a
And
bad way, but
I
like
think
as in a lot of story.
Oh, and I was just about to say that. I think I was going to say that makes sense. A lot of story. There's a lot of ground that we cover through many different perspectives. So it's one of those things where it's like this movie has a lot to say, and I think it says it all very effectively. It's just, again, I think that you're going to have people who are going to either falter for two reasons, and I think that it's the structure of this film, or it's the, just what the actual climax or reveal ends up being. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's going to be people who are going to, kind of say, ugh, like, no, it didn't live up to the hype. Unfortunately, I could see that happening. Now, I went in there very open-minded. I went in there not knowing what to expect from it, and I was very happy with it. Again, I look back at films like Don't Look Now and other 70s, The Omen, even though we understand the evil there's a lot of that similarity to it. I think that overall, this is a movie that I am excited to watch again. I would definitely go to the theater to see it again, because I'm curious to see what I would pick up on beforehand. I feel like there's a lot hidden between the cracks and crevices here. And at the end of the day, I'm going to say I think that Zach Krager is definitely still somebody we need to look out for. Is this going to be like his definitive end-all be-all best film? No, I don't think we've seen that yet. But this does kind of start to show me that Zach Cregger can make a fun popcorn kind of scare fest like Barbarian with some deep messaging. He can go deeper with it. He can go more sadistic with it and still pull back and understand, hey, I'm still making horror movies here, guys. Like, I'm still having fun. I'm still playing with concepts that are otherworldly. And I got to tip my hat to that. So for me, Weapons is going to sit at a very strong recommend.
Yes, and just to dive in the cast very briefly here,
Oh,
Josh
yeah.
Brolin for me really stole the show. I love his character work, just where his character is coming from, what he does in the film itself, and I mean Josh Brolin he has a presence about him as always, and he delivers here without question. So he was a show stealer for me, and even Julia Garner is someone that I think her performance was great as well. I think people were kind of divided in Wolfman when that
I
had come
was
out.
I was gonna say, this is gonna be the movie I think where people finally like her,
Yeah,
because I feel like she was treated unfairly in Wolfman, treated very unfairly with Fantastic Four, because get over it. And then honestly, like this one, I think you finally get to see that range that we are missing from like Ozark and stuff.
yeah, a great range for a character here. You really do feel some empathy for her as long as we're going through the story of her being this teacher, and some really kind of dark moments for her as she's going through the story. So those two characters, I mean, it's no secret those actors are fantastic and they absolutely deliver. From a tension perspective, I thought this was rather well done. I love the idea behind the story in general. It
Hmm.
really hit with me. I think the pacing was perfect, and we do cover a lot of ground without it feeling like we're overstaying our welcome, which is hard to do in an over 2 hour film. For me, this is a must see. I think I'm going to go back and watch this one. The rewatchability on this one, I feel, is endless. I think to go back, I'm eager already after seeing it one time. I think this is going to be a breeze to get through. This one's going to be so much fun to put on again. I honestly can't wait. So, yeah, Weapons, big win this year.
Absolutely, yeah, and it might change for me. It might go up. I mean, I don't see it going down unless there's something absolutely catastrophic. But again, I think it's just really smart, really fun filmmaking. I think I'm really serious now about doing that video talking about movie marketing and just like horror films and how that's kind of built a lot of expectations for people. But I want to wait and see how this one pans out first, because if this comes out and people are, I just feel it in my bones, guys. I feel it. I feel after 28 years later, I don't trust anybody anymore. Like, I'm like, I felt like that was a big win. I really liked it. And everybody's allowed to have their opinion, of course, and I'm fine with that. But it's one of those where it's like, damn, like, I just don't know. Like, I don't know if people are really going to like the fact that this movie takes its time to tell its story in the way that it is. I just feel like that just seems shocking to me. So I'm curious. I hope everybody really enjoys it. I know a lot of our diehard fans will probably be on board with it with us, but let us know down below whether you hated it, whether you loved it, or maybe it just confused you. I don't know. There's a lot of different things in this one. So certainly going to be talking a lot more Weapons on the channel here. We are lining up a spoiler panel for this one. So whether it's just Luke or myself or us and a few guests, we will see. So keep an eye out. Probably have that bad boy out maybe like Sunday morning. Going to try to shoot for that. So, alrighty, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up here. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.
Do the horror shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass. 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 Splattercast, gonna smash your ass.